Hello. So you get two closing talks in one after Iqbal, so thank you, Iqbal. We started yesterday hearing from my co-executive director, Vincent Kwan. I'm Laura, the other co in the co-director setup. I joined North America about 9 years ago, so that's almost from the beginning, but they did make it a year without me. So just to introduce myself briefly, I started this portion of my career working in rural Honduras, studying the impact of a nutrition supplement on young children. In other contexts after that, I worked on sanitation projects, migration, cook stoves, and really evidence-based policymaking was becoming quite ingrained in the international development community with creative randomized evaluations in a variety of subject areas. When I came to North America about 9 years ago, we were really still testing the waters of what would be possible, whether there would be demand and interest from the policymaking and research communities for increasing the number of randomized evaluations in the region and increasing the use of evidence in policymaking. Then there are a lot of assumptions on both sides that because of really high quality administrative data, evaluations would be less reliant on surveys than in a low-income country context. And so they'd be super easy, super quick, and much less expensive. On the other hand, there was a thought that evaluations would be much more difficult and more expensive because of things like the cost of living, relative expense of implementing evaluations, in just a different context. I found that neither is true as a rule. Both are true sometimes. But what is true is that I think one of JPEL's greatest strengths that Iqbal started to allude to is our comprehensive focus, that our work is stronger because it draws on experience from across the world and from across different contexts. So we heard a few examples from Iqbal just now about research that has kind of crossed borders and come back. And we heard earlier yesterday from Marianne Bertrand about changing thinking on cash transfers. And now we're taking that and looking at how cash transfers might prevent homelessness. And so just thinking about applying these things across contexts. But one of the things that really excites me personally is the ability to think about not just the results, but how to conduct and run evaluations, how to develop effective partnerships, how to gather and analyze, interpret data, how to get those data use agreements signed, and just learning from the experience of hundreds of evaluations of how to actually run those evaluations. And how to increase the effectiveness of that next evaluation and make the implementation as strong as it can be. So helping researchers like how Amy was in 2008, reasonably experienced, but maybe not having a whole idea of how to support research. And thinking about Ingrid earlier today saying, how he's really taken on the challenges of building an RCT from the ground up. So looking to support so much more of that work. So to close out our session, I want us to take a few minutes to reflect on some takeaways from the past few days. I have a bunch of notes, partially from preparing for this session. I'm sure many of you have notes and ideas and things bouncing in your head. So I want you to take one of the small note cards in the center of the table, pretend that it has a cool JPEL logo on it. You can draw your own like I did. So one side is for doodling, and the other side is just to write down one or two of the key themes or takeaways that you have from this session. So of all your notes, of all your thoughts, what is that one or two things that you want to return to? I'm supposed to have a slide here. What are those one or two things you're going to return to when you're back at your desk and you're fresh and you have a little energy that you're going to follow up on or continue thinking about from today's conference? So this is a to-do while I'm kind of going through some of the key themes to maybe jog your memory if you don't remember the whole conference. So we heard over the last couple of days about effective programs that increase opportunity and economic mobility. So we heard Larry Katz talking about how sectoral employment programs generate large earnings increases and support participants in getting high quality jobs. Today, Sarah Heller talked to us about summer youth employment programs, which lower rates of arrest and incarceration for youth who participate. And our panel yesterday helped us learn about the large and consistent impacts of high-dosage tutoring and the work being done across North America to expand tutoring to as many students as possible. Beyond these effective programs, we gained insights into the opportunities and challenges for generating new evidence on what works, with examples from researchers, implementers, and funders. Our panel, working to reduce and prevent homelessness, noted the challenges in the details and some of the careful attention to detail in doing really ethical data collection and thinking about surveys, all of the details that come across. We heard others also talk about how they dealt with ethical challenges of, for example, giving principals 5 freebie slots when they were thinking about the randomized allocation. And then we heard from many panelists and presenters throughout the last couple of days talking about the possibilities and challenges of doing research on racial equity, thinking about how this might look in times of backlash against even programs that are proved effective, thinking about the difficulties of doing research and the need to really focus on systemic racism. Beyond that, we explored the realities of evidence-based policymaking. So our state and local government perspectives panelists, as well as many others, shared insights on the importance of relationships, building trust, and having long-term partnerships as really key to both generating research and making sure that it can be followed up upon. So the theme we heard repeated throughout the few days. We also heard about how research can really engage communities and participants in identifying what the challenges are, starting from that consensus on what the problem actually is, and then working towards identifying solutions. Laura Arnold noted a commitment to helping people and a commitment to knowing and acting on the truth of what works, as she talked about fealty to the community. So there's a lot of themes about just anchoring on what we're trying to achieve and letting that kind of drive us through as we're doing the research and as we're thinking about policy and how to act on it. So one takeaway I have from all of this, which has been reinforced throughout my career and again in the last couple of days, is that evidence-based policymaking requires not just generating study after study, which it also does. It requires, as someone who I forgot to note down said, resolve, resilience, and research. So it requires a coalition of researchers, practitioners, policymakers, and funders who together look for and seize upon opportunities for evaluation and have a willingness to learn what works and act on those results, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's not what we've been doing all along. So I'm incredibly proud of what JPL North America has accomplished over the last 10 years, especially the 9 that I can take partial credit for. But I want to really acknowledge the role that our staff have played in helping build those coalitions and supporting work along the way, as well as the entire ecosystem that it has taken that Iqbal went into detail on how these all interact, but the network of researchers, implementers, policymakers, and funders, without whose kind of cooperation in this ecosystem, nothing would be, we would not be here being able to talk about these effective programs or thinking about what to do next. So reflecting on our last 10 years has given us insight into what we want to do in the next 10. Where do we want to be from here? So overall, we want to continue to focus on our key strengths. We're not here to kind of restart and refresh. We're here to kind of go deeper into what we're good at and then expand from there. So we'll be focusing on continuing to catalyze transformative research by launching, funding, and implementing hundreds of new rigorous and policy-relevant evaluations across our policy area. Did I click a button? No. And continuing to tackle the next questions that we're seeing. What are the mechanisms behind programs that we're starting to find effective, and how can we scale those? And looking for approaches more than just programs. We want to continuously raise the standards for how research is done. And this is in part considering how to center the voices of participants, how to incorporate qualitative work, how to really center racial equity, and continue just elevating the standards for the work that we're doing. And then we want to spur new creative research in new areas. Then we want to continue to think about how to influence policy with evidence, synthesizing and disseminating evidence in new areas as it emerges, and supporting the scale-up of a new generation of evidence-based programs. And then finally, we heard a lot in the past couple of days about creating the culture of evidence-based policy and really making sure that that culture and relationship building continues to have a focus. So we want to have a culture that is committed to improving lives and to using evidence and kind of using those in tandem. We're thinking about that through building the pipeline of leaders committed to evaluation and evidence use, through training and technical assistance, and investments in the policymakers and the government workers that are so necessary in all of this work. We might not get you that journal of education impact research, but we will be working on the culture. We want to be thinking about leading communities of practice in the work and connecting people working on similar issues, and supporting researchers and communicating effectively with policy and decision makers. Lastly, just a couple of key themes that weave through all of this circle. We want to expand the use of randomized evaluations that look at how to increase racial equity, that address the pandemic of racial injustice, and that look at structural racism. So a lot of the themes we've heard in the last couple of days. We want to amplify our work at the state and local levels, looking at long-term partnerships and building networks of state and local evidence champions. And then we'll emphasize the action in Poverty Action Lab, working to spur the adoption of evidence and technical support to influence the scale-up of a wide range of proven programs. So overall, I think JPL North America has a bright future, and we're looking forward to continuing our partnerships, furthering our mission to advance the landscape of evidence-based policymaking, and ultimately reduce poverty and increase equity and opportunity. We encourage all of you to reach out with ideas and collaborations and whatever other thoughts you have. We can't do this work without you, and I'm so glad that you were all able to join us for the last couple of days. So thank you so much for coming, and I hope you all have a safe journey home and return to your note cards next week.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, so much for coming. And once again, a big shout out to the JPAL staff who were heavily involved in planning today. So Jana Amador, Leslie Harkins, Lena Sonterbloom, Kate Christie Moore Flanagan, Khadija Noor, Aaron Graber. Just could not have been able to do these 2 days without all of your great, great, great work. And thank you, everybody, for spending the last 2 days with us. And we hope that you feel energized and will leave today with a lot of new ideas. And please do fill out those note cards. We may follow up with some of the ideas that you have there. All right, thank you very much and get home safely. I think my mic just, oh no, it's back on. All right. We also have a feedback survey on the QR code for folks who want to fill that out. Thank you.